right, ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen and ladies, ladies and gents, we're going to entitle this video Partial Success on the Incarceration Contract. And the reason why we're going to call it Partial Success on the Incarceration Contract is because we haven't completed everything yet. So we can give you a little bit of history so that you will understand and a little bit of a background. When I got the initial contract from an associate of Bradley Christopher Stark, I went ahead and amended it, put my information in, added a couple other points to solidify it so that there were no loopholes that anybody could crawl through, and made sure that it was a catch-22 agreement. After doing that, I sent it out via priority mail from the post office, making sure that I got a receipt, and I confirmed delivery to 10 different agencies, including 7 different states, and then the Department of Defense, and so forth. So mine went out to all of these wonderful people, and nobody responded. Not a single agency, not a single department. So I sent them a notice of default. Now, technically the contract says that they waive the right to further notices. The incarceration contract says this. All of the contracts that you find at SAAlimited.com says that they waive the right to notices. So you do not have to notify them, and if they complain they didn't receive notice, you waive that right. So many people are trying to say they didn't receive notices. We put that clause in there intentionally because that's their number one claim. Then I sent them the notice of fault opportunity to cure and the notice of default intent to arbitrate. I went to arbitration in about, I believe it was April of last year, and I received an arbitration award for $14.8 billion because this has been going on for over 20 years, and it is $1.6 million per day. We proceeded to wait until December of this past year. In December, a member of the organization went into the post office, had them place the priority mail label on the envelope and the priority mail number. The mail was sent to the Superior Court of Maricopa, no, not Superior Court, the District Court at Maricopa County in Arizona for the state of Arizona. That was December 3rd. We also had an individual mail it priority mail from a different location to the Attorney General of the United States. We have the post office, when you go on and do the tracking number, it shows that the package was never delivered. However, we have another site, which is associated with the post office, which shows the date the package was actually delivered and the time and the fact that it was signed for. So you can't go off of the USPS site because they don't always give accurate information on there. That's why they tell you have to go into the office. Fine. We got proof that the Attorney General received it. Here's the thing, everybody, so that you'll understand why I say partial success. The Attorney General never responded to our motion to confirm. They're in default. We're in the process of requesting a clerk's default. Now, the first thing the court's going to want to do is give the Attorney General another opportunity to respond. Can't do that. See, we waited. Purposely. Waited. The court never gave us a case number. But we have proof that they received it. Never gave us a case number, and they're going to try to prolong this by giving the Attorney General the benefit of the doubt when the mailbox rule says the moment we deposited the mail with the post office, it is being delivered. Remember, rain, sleet, snow, hail, they'll deliver the mail? Well, that's the reason for that, is because the United States Congress has guaranteed that the mail would be delivered because that is a common law right to communicate with one another. And so that's why the mail is so important. That's why it is a federal crime for anyone to interfere with the passage of the U.S. mails. Let's get back to the default. We put in a request to the clerk.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
For a default against the opposing parties, who are all represented by the United States Attorney General, and we are putting in a petition for default judgment by the court and the entry of the motion to confirm. Now, again, it's for $14.8 billion, and they're in default. They cannot cure the default. If the court were to sit up there and do something stupid, which I expect them to do, because you got to anticipate stupidity, because like with Mr. Stark, they're not going to want to pay out this type of funds, especially to someone like me. And that's too bad, because I'm prepared for that. Then we appeal it immediately, and we only deal with the issue of the default. We don't have to deal with anything else, and we have proof of delivery, proof that they received it, and we have proof that we mailed the item to the court. You see, the unique thing about the mail going to the court, that was also done by going into the post office, having the clerk of the post office put the label on the tracking number and so forth. So, again, by law, that's considered delivered the moment we put it into the post office. So we supplied all the proof on this planet. We showed all of the proof of services, showing how that the Attorney General has had a habit of not responding. And because they did not respond, it means they're not contesting. Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear me speak about partial success, here is the success part. See, that's partial because we haven't completed the confirmation process. We're working on that now. The success part is no one can challenge the contract at this time. They're in default. The court can't challenge the contract. They don't have the authority because there's no one contesting. The law requires for someone to put in a motion to vacate or a petition to modify, or that there be some miscalculation, or there be some misconduct of the arbitrator. The court cannot act upon its own motion. It actually says that in the Federal Arbitration Act, it has to be a party to the arbitration who brings forth the claim. Well, they can't bring forth the claim because they're in default. They can't petition the court to vacate because they're in default. So at this point, the contract is valid. No one can say it is not. Why? Because the Attorney General has not contested the contract, and the court cannot contest the contract. I will keep all of you apprised as to this. Now, as far as the releasing, please understand from day one, that's the reason why I allowed this to happen. Didn't have to allow this to happen. I could have put a stop to this from the very beginning. I could have spoken up during that stupid trial, but I chose to keep my mouth shut. Why? Because as I told everybody, the incarceration contract was the most important to me, and I had to test it out for everyone. So if you have family members, if you have people you know who are incarcerated right now, and they've done an incarceration contract, tell them to hold on, because I am going for precedent setting. And all of you understand that I do anticipate them changing the federal.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
If not yesterday, very soon as a result of what's going to happen in this case. I know they're going to change it because now they can't stop us. You see, they can't lie about the company saying we're not serving parties, because that's what the other attorneys have been trying to say. Now, I want you all to understand what's been going on so that you get it. We are serving process on all of these companies and all these attorneys. They're ignoring everything. And then when it comes time for us to do the arbitration, they're ignoring the notice of arbitration, only saying we didn't enter into a contract. Well, thank you. That's your evidence. You just said you didn't enter into a contract, but we have the contract. We have the proof that you were notified. It's called implied consent. Once they're given notice that they must respond and they refuse to respond, or once they refuse to respond, which is a condition of the agreement, they have entered into the agreement via implied consent. If you want to educate yourself, look up the legal definition of implied consent, and you will get it. Plus, UCC Article 9, Section 208 through 210 speaks as to performance contracts. The moment they perform one act, now they have a duty to respond because they're government, and the government sits as representatives of the people. Yes, they must respond to me. You represent me. If I ask you a question, you better respond to me. You better answer me. You're my servant. You're a public servant. You have a duty. You can't just do what you want. So yes, they have a duty to respond. And there's a prior relationship. All aspects and elements of contract law have been applied to these contracts. That's what they can't get around. And so that's what we put into effect when we put these contracts out there. We wanted to make sure all of you were protected. So if your people have done the incarceration contract, trust me, tell them to hold on, because my contract sets the precedent for each one of them. Nobody can come and say their contract is invalid or their arbitration award is invalid. Now, I wasn't going to cover this. I'll be doing one more video. We'll splice the two videos, so we'll do two separate videos. I'll do one more after this. But what I want to do is I want to let you guys know, those of you who have done the contracts, who have completed the contracts, you mailed it out to everybody, understand you don't need a confirmation. Understand this. You do not need a confirmation. Look under the IRS code for arbitration and arbitration awards. You'll see that you can claim your arbitration award on your taxes by doing a write-off of that award. And you can offset it against the regular income tax you have. All you have to do is document your federal withholdings. You got to give the IRS their piece of the pie, their piece of the puzzle. Document the withholdings. Okay? The current federal tax withholdings for corporations is 21%. The highest that I found that you can go is 31%. You have to document that on the tax filing for the return. You can file quarterly, annually, biannually. I am not your tax agent. You'll have to check with your tax agent. If they say you can't do this, show me in the code where I can't do this. That's why you look up the code for arbitration awards. This is what I've done for you, ladies and gentlemen. It hasn't cost you a thing. I haven't given you this information until now. Go back over this video, listen to it again, listen to this section again so that you'll know. Your arbitration award, even if you have not gotten it confirmed, or even if it's past a year for confirmation, you can still write off the amount on your taxes and receive a tax credit in the form of a refund. You receive the tax credit automatically after 6 months. Follow me, everybody listen. Once 90 days go by, then you can write it off. Once 6 months go by, you can go ahead, file your taxes, and the tax credit is automatic. So if it was a $2 million arbitration award, after 6 months, you write it off on your taxes, you have $2 million worth of tax credits minus the 31% of the federal income tax withholdings that you document.
You have 60 seconds remaining
On your tax filings. Okay, that should be beneficial to quite a few of you. There's a lot more detail I can go into, but circumstances, times, events, all of that wonderful stuff. So I will speak to all of you when I get an opportunity. We'll be doing another video on the Q-Tax coming up next. So all of you have a nice day, have a nice life, have a nice whatever, and we'll talk.